Welcome to today's episode of the Back to the City sessions. With me in the duplex today, I have both members of FINESSE, and just last night, all of us were at the Minnehaha recording company. Let's begin every episode as we do at the Minnehaha recording company. Here's FINESSE playing the title track from their new EP, Unbroken Memory.
On my heart.
Welcome back to the Duplex. That was Unbroken Memory, which you just released at Ice House. Right now, you're fresh from performing at a sold-out, even well before it happened, 7th Street Entry show.
Yes.
Who were you performing with?
Book of Love.
Yeah, how did that come about?
First Ave asked us about the show.
Yeah.
Which was exciting because we're both big Book of Love fans.
Are they a specific influence on this project?
I mean,
they're about the right time period from a lot of stuff we like. They use a lot of the same synthesizers.
Yeah.
I remember watching Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. They did the soundtrack.
Yes.
So I remember seeing them like, man, there's like a lot of Yamaha DX7 on this. This is a great song. Like, I looked them up and it turns out they're actually just a pop band. So, yeah.
So there was lots of Yamaha DX7.
Yep.
Were you saying?
Which is like the first commercially available digital synthesizer. So all those like really metallic, bright bell sounds and like electric pianos.
Yeah.
Kind of a game changer. Yeah.
Visual aids just here. You have a Yamaha. What Yamaha do you have?
Oh yeah, that's the DX7.
That's the same.
Yep.
Oh wow. So definitely following in the footsteps.
Yep.
Then below that.
Oh, I have a Roland JX8P, which is kind of like, it's from 1985, so it's got kind of those big string sounds, and brass sounds. Yeah.
So I've got some nice dramatic footage of you performing the closing song in today's episode, which is, I think, my favourite, Break the Steel. It's just so fun to watch. Which of the two?
Oh, that's the Yamaha.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a really expressive thing, which a lot of synths aren't. Like, it's really sensitive to your playing, and it's got a lot of modulation things. It feels like you're playing an instrument, not a synthesizer, which I like a lot about it.
Yeah, and by the time we get to the end of the episode in that song, you will also be playing an instrument, as is the case with many of the songs, actually.
Yep.
So let's give a shout out to the final instrument, your legacy guitar.
Yep.
Yeah. So, which is a wonderful color.
Yes.
As well.
That was
important.
the main reason I bought it. I was on the hunt for a Strat because that's like the 80s pop guitar. Like, it's on every single 80s pop song, and I was like, God, I really need one of those. Because in my other bands I was playing a Telecaster, and that worked really well for that. But for pop stuff, you can't beat a Stratocaster. So I tried to find the perfect Stratocaster, which ended up being a GNL Legacy.
How did you find it?
I'm a seasoned Craigslist hunter, so I found it, and it's just some guy out in Lakeville, I think, was selling it. Yeah. And what's good for me is that those don't have a lot of resale value, even though they're really nice guitars made in the U.S. So I got it well under what it's worth, I think.
How difficult was it to find the one with the right color?
Oh, that took a long time. That's what took me so long for it.
And how was this the right color?
Like, I associate certain colors with certain sounds or textures.
Yes.
So for me, like chorus, the effect that you use on like everything in 80s music, I associate with blue.
Yeah.
And so
that's the pedal.
It's the pedal.
Yes, exactly.
Like most chorus pedals are blue.
That's true.
Most phaser pedals are orange. So when I hear phaser, I think of like orange in the 70s and stuff like that. So got that, and has the matching color on the headstock, which is not always the case.
Yes.
So it's a nice touch.
Yeah. And all of this, we're basking in the basking in its splendor, just to your right.
Yeah, we're trying to have a strong visual component to the band, so that was part of it.
I would say succeeding.
Yep.
So you're responsible in this particular band for all of the instruments.
Pretty much, yeah.
But Patrick does also play instruments.
Yes.
So you play, is it synth at the moment?
I play a little bit of synth.
Yeah.
It's funny that you bring that up, because in Pale Spectre, I'm
yeah.
replacing Jeff, who was playing synth.
And Jeff is playing bass?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so Jeff couldn't play a show, and they're like, oh, Pat could do it. And I was like, can I do it?
So that's the first band where you're playing synth?
Second, but I play synth in a band called Principality as well.
Yes.
And with that band, it's very simple, and that's the point. It's supposed to be very broken down to its core notes. And so it's super simple synth playing. So Pale Spectre actually was the first time where I kind of learned bigger things.
Yeah, it's not simple. So are you playing Jeff's parts?
Yes.
At the moment?
Yeah.
Will you be writing new parts in that band as a synth player?
I do a little bit, and I do a little I think this is okay if we need to build on it,
luckily,
let's do that.
Luckily there's a Jeff in the band. So.
Yeah, neither of us are piano players.
No.
It's just, I think I have a little bit more music theory
Yes,
knowledge.
for sure.
So I can I can't physically play everything I want to, like perform it, but I can think of what notes, like, oh, that chord should be inverted, or maybe you should throw the 7th in there and stuff like that. So like, while I can't perform it perfectly, it's like I have a starting point where I kind of know where I want to go with it.
Yeah, that's all you need.
Yeah.
And then just follow your sense.
That's where MIDI comes in for
Yeah.
finesse.
Exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about the songwriting process.
Yeah, sure.
I have it on the good authority of melody maker, British
Yeah,
journalist Simon Reynolds, that the format is the composer-operator and singer-lyricist format, aka the fire and ice combo.
Yes.
So back to the blue and
Yeah.
then you are the ice.
Yes.
Yeah. So as composer-operator, what's your process? And then we'll turn to...
Yeah, sure.
to
So
singer-lyricist.
usually I get an idea for like a chord progression or a songwriting technique I want to try out. Like if I hear something in a different song that I really like, I'm like, oh, what are they doing there? And so I try to do that, but in my own way. And
Yeah.
so usually I write everything in my DAW. I use Logic.
Yes.
So usually it starts with a chord progression or a drum rhythm that I program, and then I end up usually writing some kind of keyboard or guitar hook in there.
Yeah.
But I've learned to leave room for the vocals, and because a lot of times I try to complete a song, just be like, okay, it's done, and then I'll put vocals on. That's how I've written in other bands before.
Like Posh Lost, for example.
Yeah, so we would
you
write
would
in-
also be the lyricist on some songs.
Yep, so when I write with my vocals, I write the entire song, everything is done, and then I try to throw lyrics on top, but I've found that that's not always helpful. A lot of time the arrangement doesn't have room for another part, and so I've learned to just like have songs that I think are like half finished with in mind that like Pat's gonna finish it up because he's going to add the memorable part, the vocals.
So next up on today's show is the waiting game, which followers of Finesse will have experienced live at a number of shows, but it's not yet on a record. It will be on the next EP.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you recall what the genesis of the waiting game was when you were in Logic? And
Oh yeah, I was really into the first Madonna record and Shannon.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let the music play.
Yeah.
So I noticed they use a lot of like auxiliary percussion instruments. Like it's not just one drum machine. They have like bongos and like Latin percussion sounds. And so I was like, well, that's like a really cool part. I should try writing something with that in it. And then so when I was messing around, I was like, oh man, that kind of sounds like a clock. Like those little bells. That's what that's supposed to be. It's like a ticking clock.
Oh, wow.
And so I was
Did that then inspire the idea of waiting, like time waiting?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think I can't remember which came first because we'll often come up with like a hook first, or here's the line we're gonna build everything on.
Yeah.
And I can't remember with this one which came first. The clock part may have come first.
Yeah, or it might have been a different version. But then when you wrote the lyrics, like, let's change it to like be that kind of cheesy thematic thing. Like sometimes we write with like a music video in mind. Like, what would they do?
Speaking of which, we will be going on a journey next door to your music video when we return from the Minnehaha Recording Company momentarily. So how did these lyrics develop? It's interesting, we've got the idea of time because of the
bell
auxiliary
sounds,
percussion.
Yep.
But then the lyric becomes, I can't play the waiting game.
Yes.
So it's an interesting relationship to time, I think.
Yes. So kind of how I write music is it's very in the moment, and it may have been something specifically I was thinking at the time, but then I try to find like a motif to work through. With Finesse, it's interesting because there's there's like 15 pop motifs that are used.
There's 1,000 words.
1,000 words, yes.
Which is the song at the moment.
Yes. But like there's only so many motifs in pop music. And so this song's kind of about like a partner who won't commit or something like that.
Yeah.
But like what I was feeling at the time has nothing to do with that, or like what was probably in my head has absolutely nothing to do with that concept. But to me, it's like working through the metaphor and all of that.
Yeah, that's interesting if you purposefully take a motif like a pop motif.
Yes.
That's what you wanted
Yes.
to, because of course you're a lyricist for other bands,
Yes.
like Claps, for example.
Yes.
This last song before we returned to the Minnehaha Recording Company is a song called Assembly Line by Claps.
Yes.
Did you write those lyrics?
I did.
It's like day and night. The idea of an assembly line, flesh and bone is what I am.
Yeah.
That would have no place, I think, in a Finesse song.
Exactly. Yes.
A little bit too dark wave. As singer-lyricist, what parameters do you set for yourself within Finesse as opposed to Claps?
With each band that I'm in, I kind of, in my head, create a sort of character that I'm portraying.
Yeah.
And kind of drop into that character. And part of the reason I do that is because when I was like a high school kid writing punk songs that were like personal to me,
Yeah.
those are kind of hard to perform.
Yeah.
And especially like you grow and change. So if it's a project you're going to do for years, playing a song that was like super emotional to you when you were 18 isn't going to apply to you when you're 28 or 30.
Yeah.
And so I always try to kind of drop into a character and see it through that character's eyes a little bit.
Yeah, you keep your life in roles.
Yes. Yes.
To quote 1,000 words.
Yeah.
The double meaning of that, I think,
Yeah.
could apply to this.
Mhm.
That's the opening lyric to 1,000 words. What does I keep my life in roles mean?
So the kind of motif in 1,000 words is in like a lot of new wave songs. It's very much the occupational song where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, this guy has blank job, explains his situation through his job.
Yes.
And so I work in video, and I was like, oh, what's something I can write about? It's like film development process as a metaphor for relationship or for falling in love, where it's like I can only see things through the film that I develop.
Yeah, and this is the generic experience. This is the motif.
Yeah.
And there's, as humans, that is how we interpret life.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in love. I'm in like a romance.
Yes.
That's the film I'm in at the moment.
Yes.
So there is a kind of, existential significance to that.
Yeah, and while like the art you create inevitably reflects what you're feeling at the time. And so it's like, oh, well, he sets up a scene, but like looks at the scene and still finds the person that he's falling in love with.
There's simultaneously these levels of simulation and narrative that isn't really true.
Yeah, no.
But then at the same time, there's in Finesse, I think, as opposed to say in Claps, where there might be the focus on like the falsity and the production line component of experience. In Finesse, there's this yearning.
Yes.
Is that a defining feature?
I think it's interesting to compare the two, because I think Claps is very cynical and somewhat has a darker view of the world.
Yes, it does.
Where Finesse, I think, is trying to find hope or optimism in a world that is complicated and hard.
Yes.
Yeah, we've talked about this. Like, one of the major draws of pop music is like lyrics that are real, or tell it how it is. Is like, I already know the real world kind of sucks. Like, I want art to elevate me into a better place, and that's what a lot of pop music does. So I don't think it's totally fluff and.
It's pre-established. Okay, we're in the real world.
Yeah.
Yep.
But let's hunt, to use a metaphor that we were applying to thinking about the composition process earlier, and that shows up in the waiting game. The hunter rolls on, your prize the game. Let's hunt for something meaningful or of substance or to be valued within this realm.
And I think with Finesse too, some of that can be tongue-in-cheek or like working through a metaphor that's weird, but like the concept is supposed to be positive and it's supposed to be freeing and kind of like, oh, love is real.
Yeah.
Or like, the world isn't always a dark place. And it can be okay.
Yeah, like I view pop music as not just popular, but it can also be populist. Like, it takes broad themes and something that most people have experienced.
Yes.
And so like that's why we try to keep our songs broader and not a specific thing that happened in Pat's life.
No.
Yeah.
So it's applicable to the listener. Like, we always have the listener in mind when we write.
Yeah. So back to the waiting game before we dive into it, back through our green screen. With this one, you selected a kind of love experience that's extreme, that's universal, perhaps. Everyone might at some point in their life, presumably, experience a partner who isn't as committed as them. But it's not something that you were experiencing at the specific time.
No, not at all. Like, I'm not married, like, happily, is No, not personal at all.
So how did that play? So as you're composing these specific lyrics,
it's interesting. So I'd have to go back to like that day and what I was feeling that day, but I probably had some weird commitment or something I had to do that I was like, oh, I just can't put myself all in something, or someone I was working with was like not fully into something. It's like, and it wasn't finesse at all. No, it was much more outside of that. But like, everybody has that feeling of like, oh, we're so close, like let's just all work together. And so it's like, how do you deal with that in a pop music sense? You put it about a love song or a love story, and you work through that.
So this, you make it be, how interesting. So the fundamental idea, maybe what you were feeling in your life, is this desire to push, which maybe relates to what we were just talking about.
Or to connect to someone.
To connect, yes. To connect and to kind of maybe push past the cynical attitude and to do something together. Yeah. And then that comes true in the lyrics. You're hiding in plain sight, and I gave it all away. You keep searching for a hope in a changing world, but I can't keep faith in a fool's paradise. It's interesting how that kind of vocalizes, does that vocalize the perspective that the music, perhaps even more so than the lyrics, is kind of taking us beyond?
Yes. Yeah. Where it's like, hey, the world isn't great, but like we can make it good, and it can be helpful and nice.
Yeah, just listen to these synths.
Yeah.
Let it take you on a journey.
Exactly.
So let's listen to these synths and let them take us on a journey, thinking about time and listen out for the clock sounds. Here's The Waiting Game, as performed by Finesse only yesterday at the Minnehaha Recording Company. That was The Waiting Game by Finesse. Welcome back to the Duplex. We were talking about time earlier, and I was really intrigued by one wonderful phrase in your bio. According to the bio, Finesse recall memories of the forward-looking second wave of synth pop. I just think just within that sentence, there's like somersaults happening in terms of tense. Even just the phrase recalling memories, but memories of something that's forward-looking.
We're both fans of like what is considered like the first wave of synth pop, which is like the really experimental, like Ultravox,
Human
League. We're fans of that, and that's kind of what got me interested in synthesizers. But it's the stuff that came after that, where it kind of broke more into the mainstream, like Human League's Dare, like being a Touchstone record. I guess what draws me to that music is that it was not afraid to use the technology of the time to make stuff that nobody had heard before, but also keeping songwriting elements that people like and are kind of like standards, or like the standard has been set for like a 3-minute and 30-second pop song. And like having a catchy hook during the chorus. Like they're using the songwriting techniques that have been tried and true with technology that hasn't been explored yet, and I thought that was just like a really cool concept.
What were some of these new technologies?
Well, just synthesizers, meaning like you can make a sound that sounds like an existing instrument, or you can make something that's totally bizarre and from outer space. In like 1983, MIDI came out, so being able to like edit note performance, so you could theoretically make something that no human could play, which is an interesting thing. But you could also just use it like I'd use it, which is that I can compose what I hear in my head, but not necessarily have to have classically trained piano skills. It's like a new way of writing sheet music almost for me. Like I can hear the notes in my head, and I can experiment with the notes without having to I write it on sheet music, bring it to musicians. Just having that like compositional element is really, really helpful for me, and I think was helpful for a lot of people back in the 80s. It allowed people who didn't have classical training to make music, which I think is really awesome.
First wave, new wave, and synth pop are almost always in vogue.
Yes.
Where second wave, the best way I can explain it is, so when I first got to new wave or synth pop, or even just synth music in general, we would go to like dollar record stores or discount record stores, and we would buy anything before 83 without a saxophone in it.
There's that analog fetishization.
Yes.
Like anything digital, like that's a faux pas. You don't do that in the minimal synth world.
Yes. And so kind of realizing like, I have this huge extensive knowledge of like that, but slowly figuring out like maybe I actually like post 83 better, and like it kind of is more optimistic. I'm both of us are big modern pop fans.
Yes.
And I think kind of the basis of modern pop is second era synth pop.
What are the components of second era synth pop that then become the basis of modern pop?
Well, how we write, or how pop songs are written today, is just synth pop. It's synthesizers, but it may be written in Ableton or whatever. Like we're just so used to those tones.
Influences that came later, like house and trap and stuff like that. But it's still the actual idea of just using synthesizers to make pop songs.
OMD goes from being an experimental band to being one of the biggest pop bands over the span of like one record. It's just a switch, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that's pop music now.
We can see then how it would make sense to describe Finesse as a pop duo inspired by 1982, created for 2017. What's specific about the way in which the 80s sounding retro Finesse music is created for 2017?
I think a huge influence for both of us to do Finesse, I think, is Carly Rae Jepsen.
Definitely.
Yeah, like when Emotion came out, it was such a breath of fresh air in pop music. Because all the songs are incredibly well written on a pop level. Like it takes stuff from 90s boy band stuff, it takes stuff from George Michael or other 80s pop, and kind of puts it in this 14, 15 package.
And I think we liked it a lot because it's just like streamlined pure pop. It's like it doesn't have a gimmick really.
No.
It doesn't have something that's like supposed to be edgy and catch your attention that way. Like it does it just by writing really good songs.
And as musicians who have done edge, that was
it's almost more edgy to be like cheesy and soft than it is to be like loud and dissonant.
And in 2017 especially, it feels kind of healthier to be in that. Like there's enough stuff in the world that isn't great where it's like, I'd rather be optimistic.
Yeah.
And I'd rather write things that are positive and can help people have fun and feel better than stuff that just like keeps dragging you down.
So we were talking about these songs, on the other hand, not being kind of pure pop, not being escapism. The feet are grounded in reality, whether it's personal, emotional things that everyone can relate to, or whether it's our political situation. Is there a specific song that we could zoom in on that you think is especially grounded in some pretty dark components of reality?
It's interesting. In that kind of sense, I use a motif on a couple of songs with the idea of like, you're half in reality, you're half in the like pop fantasy.
Yeah.
And like how I use that is like on the ground or feet on the ground.
Exactly, yeah. That's
which I use in
metaphor.
a couple of songs.
Yeah.
Because it's constantly like, well, where are you? Are you being pulled towards the pop ideal, or are you part of reality? And the idea is you kind of want to be between the two. You want to
sounds ideal to me.
Yes. It's like, this is to be an escape. It is to be something that makes you feel better, but at the same time, it's like, we're still here.
And perhaps it's a challenge to make the fantastical conventional.
Yeah.
You know, in any band, you kind of exist in this realm, this intermediate realm where, you know, you decide, okay, for this band, this is the character that I have, or this is the look, or this is like the ethos of this band. But then that kind of rubs off on who you are as well. That metaphor is being used in the song that we're going to close today's episode with the dramatic work on the synth. I can't hide. When you're feeling proud, I can't touch the ground.
Yeah.
So how is this metaphor of groundedness being used in this case?
In that it's like, you can see the world in front of you.
Yeah.
And you can still be like, okay.
Right.
And that concept, I think, is hard today.
Yes, it is.
Yes. And so with that, it's like, I can't touch the ground, where it's like, I'm in the pop optimist world.
Yeah. Just listen to the soundscape that surrounds me.
Yes.
This is really where I am.
It's okay. You can see the world and be like, this is rough and hard.
Yeah.
But if you can sit and just take it in and be like, I'm still who I am.
Yeah.
I can't touch the ground. Like, I can still escape into this and come back.
Speaking of escaping and coming back, Jeff is about to escape to Japan.
I might be in a different territory.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's not running away.
No.
But, which makes me think of when I run away, I tend to leave it all behind. When Jeff leaves for Japan, he will not be leaving Finesse all behind.
No.
Because of the nature of the band, it will be able to exist as a songwriting entity.
Yes.
So why are you going to Japan, and what does that mean for Finesse?
I got accepted into a teaching English program, so I'll be working. Thank you. I'll be working in public schools as like an assistant language teacher. The great thing about having the internet and MIDI and all this stuff is like I can still write the way I do on my computer and then send the files to Pat.
To the fire.
Yes, and then he gets the themes, lyrics. We'll record that, send it over, or demo it.
Yeah.
Send it over, and then we can just kind of communicate from there, which is already kind of close to what we do now. It's going to be the same. It's just going to be, you know, texting rather than talking in person about like, oh, maybe change this part. And,
yeah. You're in enough bands together. Who needs to be in the same room?
And true.
Yeah. Well, luckily, Patrick is the one who will be in Minneapolis, where Ryan Olcott is, and the mic, you know, the nice mics and everything.
Yes.
And before the departure to Japan, a second EP will be made with both of you here. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Featuring everything that you performed in the Minnehaha recording company, apart from Unbroken Memory, which is of course the title track, the first EP. Can you reveal anything else about the plans for this second EP?
It's very quickly kind of being put together, so we haven't drawn up too much. Last night we actually sat and talked about it for a bit.
Post-performance?
Yes.
At the Minnehaha recording company.
And so we've been kind of putting together what we think we want to do. And we've been happy with like kind of the maxi single format where it's like one or two original songs and a bunch of remixes.
Yes.
Or a bunch of different versions.
Especially if it's cheap fantasy and it's xylophone jetty.
Yes, it's really affirming for us to hear remixes or cover. That one's like
That's
almost
like
a cover.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
It's really affirming for us to be like, oh man, we wrote that song, and like hearing it out of the context that we're used to hearing it is like, oh, this is a song that people like, and
a band that we like, who we would invite to play
exactly,
at our record release.
Exactly,
like
yeah.
it. And of course, Cheap Fantasy played at that as well. Cheap Fantasy, which is Jordan Blue, who works at the Minnehaha recording company. Jordan is responsible for the club edit.
Since we started Finesse and he started Cheap Fantasy, there's a lot of
they co-align, don't they?
yes, there's a lot in common.
Yeah.
So it's always been nice to have someone who we could bounce ideas off.
And we're actually remixing one of his tracks.
Yeah, and you played at his record release.
Yes.
Yeah. So
which track are you remixing?
Ain't Hard.
Yeah.
Ah, great.
He's repressing his tape, and then the remixes are going to be on the B-side.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Nice. Do we have a sense of roughly when that might be? I'm excited to hear this remix.
Hopefully the winter or early next year.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, lots to look forward to.
Yeah.
On the immediate horizon, there will be a going away show for Jeff at the Eagles on Friday, January 5th. We'll get to experience both of you in two bands. Pale Spectre will play as well. Who else is on that bill?
Controversial New Skinny Pill and Products, which Jack from Posh Lost plays in.
Yeah.
And then Dahlheimer, which Josh from Posh Lost plays in. So my idea was just like, I just want to have a show with all my friends and bands I love before I go.
A reunion.
Yes.
A reunion, which is also a goodbye show.
Unbroken Memory was what, the second or third song we wrote together?
I wrote the bass line, and then I remember throwing the just straight minor chord over the top, being like, nah, that's not quite it. And then I'm like, wait, what if I made that a 7 chord? Adding in those added notes adds in a different flavor to the composition.
Once you were experimenting with the chords in that manner, what was your initial sense of where the music was leading?
That's a good question. I feel like I had like a specific kind of, like I said, R&B type feeling I wanted to go for. So like with that high string part and the disco beat, that was very intentional, being like, this has to be a dance song.
Yeah.
But also just something you could just turn on the radio and listen to and drive to or walk around to.
I think it's a song about the idea of like moving forward, even though like the past has hurt you or bummed you out, and kind of just going like, no, there's still hope in it. I could fall in love again.
So it's interesting, although it's called Unbroken Memory, certain lyrics and certain aspects of the song highlight kind of a need for repair. Like the character is broken and they've been hurt. Like evidently. To some extent, like the music makes me think, oh, this is the sound of repair.
And it's trying to feel hope again. And it, I think, finds hope, and that's the whole concept of like working harder every day. Working harder to rebuild that hope.
The post-chorus, like compositionally, I tried that to be a more hopeful sounding chord progression, whereas the other ones aren't not hopeful, but you know, it's just like we specifically wrote that post-chorus to be a little bit more uplifting and kind of break the mood that it was in, but then bring you back to the mood.
And instead of being stuck in like the sadness of the past or present, looking for the future, for like everything can be better and will be better if we look forward.
If we will it. I like the sound of that. You just said break the mood, and the song is called Unbroken Memory, and then break the steel that holds you here, and the scene is set on the broken back of you in 1,000 words. So this word isn't used 1,000 times, but it's used a lot. What is the significance of brokenness or unbrokenness?
There are elements of nostalgia that aren't helpful. Well, they still may be optimistic. You kind of have to push forward.
So you are moving forward in the video to Unbroken Memory on the light rail. The light rail, which many visitors to the Twin Cities will experience, whilst we don't later on this year. I love there's a moment where you seem to be looking longingly in the window that turns out to be the sweatshop workout studio. That's a favourite moment of mine. How did you go about creating this video? What's the significance of the journey?
The basic concept was sort of like a late-stage capitalist version of West End Girls. Where the West End Girls video is the Pet Shop Boys in London, constantly surrounded by people. And it's dramatic, but it's also like kind of to itself and like very alone while feeling like you're surrounded.
So they're a unit.
Yes.
The two of them are a unit.
But the whole world's moving around.
Yeah.
them. And so our take was kind of like, we're a unit and we're alone in that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not this like, oh, everything's happening. It's like, no, you kind of have to find what you want to happen.
There isn't one coherent climate or culture within which to find meaning, but you're not alone. There's there's an entity of two in this case. You make me feel so real, so alive, a part of this. It's a nice lyric to kind of encapsulate that, which of course is from my favorite Finesse song, Break the Steel, which we are now going to close the episode with. This is Finesse performing Break the Steel.
Break the steel that holds you here. No more fear, no desire lines. And I can feel you for the first time. I can't find this desired mind. You can't keep the world at your feet. I can't find, I can't hide. When you're feeling proud, I can't touch the ground. I can't close my eyes when you're next to me, and I can't feel right without you by my side. You're all I've ever wanted, and I can't wait. You make me feel surreal, so alive, a part of this, and I can't feel right for the first time in your line. Now it shines. I can't close my eyes when you're next to me, and I can't feel right without you.